Testing 1 2 3, testing 1 2 3. This is Radio Free Mormon on the air, broadcasting behind enemy lines. I come to you now for a special update on the Tim Ballard situation. The title of this episode is Glenn Beck Stands Up for Tim Ballard Against the LDS Church. It's a long title, but really, you have to get all the main players in here. It's incredible what's happening. I am recording this at 9 o'clock a.m. on Sunday, September 17th, 2023. You will recall that just 2 days ago, on Friday, I did another special broadcast about a statement that a church spokesman had made or spokesperson had made on behalf of Elder Ballard. And let's go to that right now, because that is what has started the ball rolling. Now, for a second, imagine that you are Tim Ballard, and this is being said about you. Tim Ballard, of course, being the individual who, until recently, before he stepped down as the president, was the president of Operation Underground Railroad, rocketing to fame with a hit movie over the summer where the part of Tim Ballard is played by Jim Caviezel. All right, so here now, as things are getting worse and worse for Tim Ballard, President Ballard of the Quorum of the 12, and by President Ballard, I mean the acting president of the Quorum of the 12. That's Russell M. No, that's Russell M. Nelson. M. Russell Ballard. Always get that confused. Here's a statement from this apparent anonymous spokesperson. President Ballard and Tim Ballard, who no relation, they want to add that too. President Ballard and Tim Ballard, no relation, established a friendship a number of years ago. That friendship was built on a shared interest in looking after God's children, wherever they are, and without regard to their circumstance. However, and that's a big however, that relationship is in the past. For many months, President Ballard has had no contact with the founder of Operation Underground Railroad. The nature of that relationship was always in support of vulnerable children being abused, trafficked, and otherwise neglected. Once it became clear Tim Ballard had betrayed their friendship through the unauthorized use of President Ballard's name for Tim Ballard's personal advantage and activity regarded as morally unacceptable. Now, that morally unacceptable phrase is pretty strong language coming from the president of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles about an individual who has rocketed to fame and has become somewhat of a household name amongst people in the country, amongst people around the world, and certainly amongst members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. He has attained hero status in many quarters, and he may have had hero status with President Ballard up until a few months ago. All right. Let's see. Morally unacceptable. President Ballard withdrew his association. And let me read that sentence again. Once it became clear Tim Ballard had betrayed their friendship through the unauthorized use of President Ballard's name for Tim Ballard's personal advantage and activity regarded as morally unacceptable, President Ballard withdrew his association. Yes, that's all one sentence. It's a very clumsy sentence, mainly because it doesn't specifically say what it is that the morally unacceptable appellation applies to. I still think it's supposed to apply to the allegation by President Ballard that Tim Ballard used President Ballard's name to make money, and it wasn't authorized by President Ballard. But it's written so badly that it could apply just generally, this morally unacceptable appellation. Okay, going on with the statement. President Ballard never authorized his name or the name of the church to be used for Tim's personal or financial interests. In addition, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints never endorsed, supported, or represented Operation Underground Railroad, Tim Ballard, or any projects associated with them. Boy, can you see the church running away from Tim Ballard as fast as they possibly can with this statement? President Ballard loves children. Oh my gosh, President Ballard loves children all over the world. It has been his mission in life's work to look after them, care for them, and point them to their Savior. All right. So as far as responses go, think about being Tim Ballard. I mean, whatever you think of the guy, hero or something less, he's a human being, and he's a faithful member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Up until recently, he's been good friends with President Ballard. He reads this statement. It comes out of the blue. And now we have from Salt Lake City, this is from September 16th, which was yesterday at 7:07 p.m., yesterday evening. We have this article by Adam Herbitz. Salt Lake City. This is, it looks like it's Fox 13. The title of the article is Tim Ballard responds to condemnation from his own church. Tim Ballard, the founder of Operation Underground Railroad, is breaking his silence after being condemned by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. While on a tour in Boston, Ballard addressed a crowd of supporters and encouraged them to send his recorded statements to the media. It's not true. Nothing you hear is true, Ballard begins in the video. At times, he was passionate, shouting at cameras. At times, he lowered his voice and teared up. This is breaking down my family like you can't believe, Tim Ballard said. The church released a statement to Fox 13 News and other media on Friday referring to Tim Ballard's behavior as morally unacceptable. The statement was in response to documents obtained by Vice News detailing a criminal investigation into Tim Ballard and his nonprofit. Tim is fully convinced that he is supposed to be the Mormon Messiah and lead people back to the church. So what this is saying here in this news report from Fox is that the statement from the church was in response to documents obtained by Vice News detailing this. And they give this one statement that was in those documents, in which I covered last Friday, as the reason that they're responding to it. I'm not sure that's exclusively the reason. The records reportedly state Tim Ballard received psychic readings and communication from the prophet Nephi to get intel. The church also stated Tim Ballard betrayed his friendship with President M. Russell Ballard, the acting president of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles. Despite sharing the same last name, the two are not related. This is Tim Ballard, I've never used Elder Ballard's name, ever. I've never treaded on his name to ask for anything. I think that should be traded. It actually says treaded here. I've never traded on his name to ask for anything. I've never had any business dealings with him. He's like, wherever we heard that recently, I've never had any business dealings with him. He's like a grandfather to me, Tim Ballard said. I don't believe the church did this, he said in the video. I truly don't. Can you imagine what the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, can you imagine that the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints would publicly condemn one of its members? Wow, Tim. It's very disappointing when you find out you're expendable to the church, and they will ride you and your fame and your abilities and your talents and your money as far as they can. And then as soon as you cross them or do something they don't like, boom, you are kicked to the curb. I'm sorry you're experiencing this, because I know it's disappointing. I guess the only good news is that you're not the first. You may be one of the most public, but you're not the first. Oh, and then the article goes on with one of the best lines in journalism I've ever heard. Okay, so it's just quoted Tim Ballard as saying, can you imagine that the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints would publicly condemn one of its members? And then the article goes on. Apparently, the answer is yes, they would. Yeah, absolutely they will. And they do it regularly. It's just usually not so public. The church's statement was sent by Doug Anderson from his official churchofjesuschrist.org email address. So Doug Anderson apparently is the individual who's responsible for the statement. At least it came from his email address. Doug Anderson has been director of media relations for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints for nearly 15 years, according to his LinkedIn profile. Okay, this is answering a question I had, because I was wondering, who is this person who is putting out to the media this public statement on behalf of the church and on behalf of President Ballard from last Friday? Because it sounds like a seventh grader did it. It does not sound professionally done. And if it was done by a professional, it looks like it was done under extreme duress and in a hurry, because it's not well put together. And now it's blowing up. Tim Ballard said he was in disbelief, particularly because his bishop and stake president knew nothing about the condemnation. Yeah, this happened very, very quickly. I pray to God, Ballard said, I pray to God the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints wasn't part of this. Well, of course they're part of it. They are it. They're the ones who sent out the statement. I mean, are we thinking that Doug Anderson, who's been director of media relations for the church for nearly 15 years, just, got a wild hair and just thought, I'll just put this out on my own without asking anybody? But this does go to show how difficult it is sometimes to believe when you get on the short end of the LDS Church stick, like Tim Ballard is right now. Ballard says, I don't know yet. I don't know. Yeah, I'm sure he's reeling. Article goes on. Ever since Senator Mitt Romney announced he would be giving up his seat, rumors have been circulating about Tim Ballard running for Congress. Oh, yeah. Well, Ken, I'll tell you that with this statement, the church really, really kneecapped those hopes by Tim Ballard to run for any kind of office in the state of Utah because he just got condemned by the LDS Church. They totally pulled a Tanya Harding on him. Okay. Tim Ballard says, it was leaked to the press that I was going to run for U.S. Senate. Do you think that's a coincidence? I don't know. The rumor started with a tweet from Utah Attorney General Sean Reyes stating he would be endorsing a patriot and warrior in the coming days. Okay. And everybody understood and thought that that was almost certainly going to be Tim Ballard. That plan may change now in the future. Reyes and Tim Ballard are known to be close friends who have promoted Operation Underground Railroad together. According to the clip sent to Fox 13 News, Tim Ballard did not specifically address any details surrounding the criminal investigation. Okay, so that is the story now with the response from Tim Ballard to the condemnation from the LDS Church, the personal condemnation. Okay, now it gets even more interesting. And the reason I say that is because now Glenn Beck has gotten into the fight. And Glenn Beck is going to be standing up for Tim Ballard against the LDS Church. Now, as most of you know, Glenn Beck is a very prominent radio podcast personality. He has been for a number of years, very famous, especially in conservative circles. He continues to be famous today, and he makes television appearances, etc. Now, he is also a Mormon, and he's not just one of these people who happens to be a Mormon on the side. He wears his membership in the LDS Church on his sleeve and has done a number of podcasts about it, mentioned it back when he used to have a radio show. Is very, very open about his being a member of the LDS Church, with the result that pretty much every Mormon who knows about Glenn Beck knows that he's a member of the church, and lots of people who are not Mormons know that Glenn Beck is a member of the LDS Church. So Glenn Beck, who apparently is a friend of Tim Ballard and his Operation Underground Railroad, is going to respond to this condemnation from the LDS Church. And I think it's on Instagram. So let me find this here. Okay, so I've got it here. Let me show it to you. I'm going to read this to you here in a second. But here is Glenn Beck. Hopefully you can see that. Let me check it out. Yeah, I don't know if you can. But regardless of that, I'm going to read it to you right now. So this is Glenn Beck. Now, this is a screenshot of his Instagram page. And as of the time this was screenshot, there were already 131,000 views. And that was as of just after midnight last night. I can only imagine it's ballooned beyond that as of right now. So Glenn Beck, under his official Instagram account, I think it's Instagram, it says @Glenn Beck. Things my church never used to do. This is his post. Number 1, effectively excommunicate church members without giving them adequate notice of or an opportunity to respond to accusations. Now, I certainly don't agree with everything that Glenn Beck says, but when he framed it this way, that Tim Ballard, by this public statement of the LDS Church where they condemn him, has effectively excommunicated him. You know, I think this is worse than being excommunicated, actually. So that's an interesting take on it. Number 2, he goes on. Number 2, things my church never used to do. Number 2, effectively excommunicate church members by means of public statements issued to the news media by unnamed church spokespersons. Okay, so that individual was unnamed until apparently recently we found out his name, which I just gave to you. Okay. Number 3, things my church never used to do to me. Effectively excommunicate church members through ambiguous but unquestionably damning statements casually provided to publications that hate the church, its members, and everything they stand for. And let me go to the next one because he's got more. Number 4, things my church never used to do. Number 4, effectively excommunicate church members from church headquarters with neither involvement or notice to local ecclesiastical leaders. Right, so they're effectively excommunicating him without a trial on the local level. And they're doing it from church headquarters with this statement. Number 5, things my church never used to do. Number 5, effectively excommunicate church members through church staff, not priesthood offices. Well, he's got a point there as well. So those are the 5 things that Glenn Beck has posted on his Instagram account about 5 things my church never used to do. There is going to be hell to pay for the LDS Church for handling this in such a ham-fisted manner, because there are so many people in the LDS Church who love and idolize and revere Tim Ballard, and Glenn Beck is apparently one, and he's got a big fan base, and a lot of people are going to be reading this. Yeah, can you say schism, boys and girls? I knew you could. Interestingly now, John DeLynn posts in response to Glenn Beck on Glenn Beck's Instagram page. He tells him, with respect, Glenn Beck, I'm not sure you know the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints very well. The Mormon Church uses you until you're no longer useful. Then they discard you. Happened to me. It's been that way since 1830. Oddly, I actually feel empathy for Tim Ballard. Well, I feel empathy for him as well. And I think this is a rotten thing that the church has done to him. I'm sure they have their reasons for it, and I'm sure we'll never find out what those real reasons are. It's like what Bruce Willis said in Die Hard. I could say to Tim Ballard, welcome to the party, pal. We'll see what's going to happen as a result of this. I imagine that at the church office building right now, they've gone to DEFCON 1. They're scrambling because they've got to walk back the statement that the church issued on Friday, and they've got to try and heal these wounds over. Otherwise, they're going to start losing even more members of their church. And they're going to flee this church because they're going to see it as corrupt as heck. I mean, imagine the optics of this, okay? The optics of this are that Tim Ballard, regardless of whether it's true, okay, but the optics are he's got this huge movie. Everybody knows who he is now throughout the country, for crying out loud. He is the guy who goes into foreign countries and saves children from sex traffickers. All right? That's his public perception, whether you agree with it or not. Here we have the LDS Church, who it seems is up to its neck in litigation about covering up for members of their church who have been sexually abusing children and getting socked with lawsuits over and over and over again. So here we have the church, which is known publicly for covering up for child molesters, now effectively excommunicating and writing this condemnatory letter accusing him of being morally unethical to Tim Ballard, the guy who's out there saving the children from the sex traffickers. In short, this is bad optics. We'll see what the future brings, because I'm expecting it's going to bring a lot here. It's a Sunday, it's quiet, but probably by this evening, if not by tomorrow, we're going to hear something from the church of a reconciliatory nature. That's my prediction. Well, that's about all for tonight. Thanks for joining me. Until next time, this is Radio Free Mormon, signing off the air.